Hello my friends, today we will take a look at Zhiyun Weebill S. I have reviewed the Weebill Lab, which is a predecessor of this gimbal a couple of months ago, and I really like the overall concept, but the execution left a lot to be desired. So in this video we will try to find out whether Zhiyun was able to make the perfect travel gimbal on the second attempt. Just like with the Weebill Lab, instead of storing the batteries in handle, which is the case with most gimbals, Zhiyun put the batteries in the compartment above the handle. That is a good idea in my opinion, and it really makes the gimbal more portable. It fits on A4 paper when it is folded, and it fits perfectly in the top compartment of my Peak Design 20-liter everyday backpack. It definitely makes a difference in comparison with larger gimbals, and it makes the Weebill very suitable for travel filmmaking. It weighs just 970 grams, but even more importantly, the weight is more evenly distributed in comparison with classic crane-style gimbals, so it is a lot easier to work with. Weebill S is basically the same size as the Weebill Lab, but it has 3 times stronger motors according to Zhiyun. It should even work with something like Panasonic S1 and 24-105mm f4. I've been testing it mainly with Sony A7III and FE 24mm f1.4 GM lens like every other gimbal. I've also tried it with Sony A7III and Tamron 28-75mm f2.8, which is the biggest setup at my disposal at the moment. That also works great with no issues at all. That combination didn't work well on the Weebill Lab, so I can say that the increased torque makes a huge difference. Very acceptable price for that is that the tilt and roll axes have limited motion range, which is usually the case with stronger gimbals, but I will happily accept that in exchange for higher payload. Weebill S is actually the easiest to balance out of all gimbals that I have tested. It has improved locking mechanism on all axes, which is helpful for balancing and even more importantly for transportation. Tilt and roll axes now use levers instead of screws, which also makes the balancing faster, and the axes are very easy to move, so thumbs up for the balancing process. Weebill S also has auto-tune function like Moza gimbals, so we don't have to guess which payload setting is the best anymore. What I also really like is the camera mounting system. It uses standard Manfrotto PL501 style plates, but there is actually quick release Arca Swiss plate within that plate. That means that you can take the camera off the gimbal and put it back again without rebalancing. It also means that I can mount the camera on any of my Arca head tripods, so I really appreciate that. Weebill S comes in a hard foam box, which is not intended for transportation, so no travel case is included with the Weebill S. I don't mind that so much, because using the case for traveling would defeat the portability advantage. Besides the gimbal, you will also get a table tripod, dual mounting plate, 2 26mAh batteries, USB-C battery charger, plate for raising the camera, and USB cables for charging the batteries and controlling the camera through the gimbal. Upper part of the gimbal is made of metal, and this part feels very solid. The lower part is made of plastics. It feels good overall, quality of the plastics is okay, not particularly premium, but I like the texture on the grip. Included table tripod is also super high quality. It is metal with very nice texture on the outside, so it works great as a grip extension. Regarding the smoothness, there is a huge difference in comparison with the Weebill Lab. The motors are much stronger and much more responsive. I am very happy to say that it definitely replaces full-size gimbal. Subjectively, I would say that it is a little bit smoother than Moza AirCross 2. It even performs very well when walking on rough surfaces, which is usually a weakness of lighter gimbals, but not with the Weebill S. Panning and holding the camera still is not an issue at all. It worked great with A7 III and 24mm f1.4 GM, which is what I use to test all of the gimbals on this channel. A7 III with Tamron 28-75mm f2.8 also worked very well, even when zoomed out to 50mm. Overall, the Weebill S provides incredible size to smoothness ratio, and it is more than sufficient for Sony A7 III, Fuji X-T3, Panasonic GH5, Nikon Z6, and so on. Weebill Lab is still good enough for something like Sony A6400, Fuji X-T30, GH5 with image stabilization turned on, and for my Sony A7 III and Samyang 24mm f2.8 setup. It is much cheaper now, so that makes it a great budget option for smaller setups. Another huge upgrade for me personally is that I can set the motor parameters such as the follow speed and the dead zone using the controls on the gimbal. As I've said in my reviews of Moza gimbals, those are the most important settings, and using the smartphone app for those is not convenient enough. It is a bit deeper in the menu, so it is not as convenient as just rotating the dial on Moza gimbals, but I am very happy that these settings are here at all. Regarding the controls, on the left side we have on-off button, pan follow and lock mode switch, and go button, which makes the gimbal more responsive to the movements. On the front side we have POV button, which makes the gimbal follow all axes. When you hold it for 2 seconds, it switches Weebill to sleep mode, which is very useful if you just want to change settings through the app or something like that. Video recording button works if you connect the camera to the gimbal. We will take a look at that later. Joystick lets you move the camera on the gimbal, of course. It is pretty good, and you can set the responsiveness in the menu. There is also a 4-way pad with command dial for changing the settings. On the back side we have the trigger button. When you hold it down or press it, it engages tilt follow mode, double press resets the gimbal, and triple press rotates the gimbal into selfie mode. There is also a scroll wheel on the side, but it only works for focusing with optional focus motors. With the Weebill, you are holding the gimbal by the part with the buttons, so you will need to use 2 hands for changing any of the settings. Just like with the Weebill app, you have 6 modes on this gimbal. There is pan follow, where the gimbal follows your movements in horizontal axis. Tilt follow mode can be activated by holding down the trigger button, and it follows your horizontal movements and tilting of the gimbal. In lock mode, it will just keep the camera pointed in one direction. In POV mode, it follows all axes, so panning, tilting and rolling. Go mode can be activated by holding down or pressing the go button, and it is basically a sports mode where the gimbal follows movements faster. Of course, you can enter selfie mode by triple pressing the trigger button, and you can reset the gimbal position by double pressing the trigger button. Vortex mode for vertigo effect is available by double pressing the POV button. It is also possible to set camera position just by grabbing the camera and pointing it wherever you want to. It is also possible to connect the camera to the gimbal using included cables. If you are using it with Panasonic, it works great. You can change all of the exposure values and there is no delay. You can change the aperture, ISO and the shutter speed. As I mentioned in my previous videos, if you use it with Sony, there is one huge problem. Sony has decided that for some reason it shouldn't be possible to use the remote control and stabilization at the same time, which makes zero sense of course. In-body image stabilization generally makes the footage much smoother, so it basically means that the remote control is not usable with Sony. This is a Sony's fault of course, so I don't blame Zhiyun for that. Regarding the ZY Play app, that is fortunately another area where Zhiyun fixed a lot of the issues. The app is reliable and I haven't had any issues overall. I have tested it with both iOS and Android and it worked fine on both, so you will get equal experience this time. The app has usual features such as the remote control, motor settings, motion lapses and so on. Weebill Lab was also able to transmit the video from the camera to your smartphone wirelessly, which is no longer possible with the Weebill S. That makes sense because it didn't work very well. Now you can get separate transmitter unit, but I haven't tested that one. There are 3 1/4-inch mounts on this gimbal, one is on the bottom side, so I use that one for included mini tripod. The second one is on the left side, there is also a rosette around it, and the third one is for mounting the handle for underslung mode. The battery life on Weebill S is rated for 12 to 14 hours, which is actually more than on the Weebill Lab. It only uses 2 26 mAh batteries, and I can say that it really lasts much longer than the Weebill Lab. It should last full day of typical shooting, which is very impressive considering how small is this device. Weebill S fortunately comes with new USB-C charger, which is very small. You can also get a set of spare batteries, so overall no complaints about the power management. Probably the closest competitor of the Weebill Lab is Moza AirCross 2. This is crane-style gimbal with similar capabilities, but it is not as compact. Weebill S is a bit smoother, but both are more than sufficient for stabilizing common camera setups. AirCross 2 has better controls in my opinion, and I like the mode system on AirCross 2 a bit more. The portability and the weight distribution on the Weebill Lab is much better though, which is why I prefer the Weebill S overall at the moment. If you really need heavy-duty production gimbal for something like Panasonic S1H for example, Moza Air 2 is still the most capable gimbal out there. So, what can I say? Zhiyun just got everything right on the second attempt. Weebill S has the same advantages as the Weebill Lab, but it is much smoother, it works with heavier setups, it has motor settings in the menu and other usability upgrades. It delivers everything that I need from a gimbal, but in much smaller and more portable package. That size is a huge advantage because I will be able to take it with me more often and get the same results as with larger gimbals. It is definitely the best travel gimbal at the moment, and all things considered, it may even be the best gimbal overall at the moment. So that's it for this video, thank you for watching, I hope that you liked this video and that you found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share your opinion, please do so in the comment section and see you next time.